What is going on, Sales Dev Squad? Thank you guys for tuning in to another episode of the Sales Dev Squad podcast. We got a super special episode for you today. Someone who's been a pretty big inspiration to me as of recently. Joined his Patreon group a couple weeks back, and he is absolutely breaking the internet. Not only does he have a cyborg as his profile picture on LinkedIn, but he's doing live cold calls on a Discord group, absolutely doing things that no other sales leader that I've come across is doing and has done before. Just one of the most interesting people I've ever met, but also super down to earth and willing to help you as much as he can. Justin Michael, also known as JM. Thank you so much for taking some time today, JM.
Thanks, Mateo. It's great to be back on the pod. And yeah, we're doing some exciting work. There's so many ways to make these micro communities. And I got introduced to Discord, which is fundamentally a gaming platform. But there's something sort of gamified about trying to write the right sales email, figuring out your cold call scripts. What do you do when you get a weird email? How do you deal with certain universal problems with tech stacks? And it's great. We got 200 people in there. We're finding a lot of common ground. There's a lot of knowledge sharing. The goal is beyond like systems that I invent or techniques or templates. It's everybody helping each other. And the coolest part of having created is when I step back and I'm busy and I come in there and there's like thousands of interaction, things lit up like a Christmas tree. And then, I'm seeing the results and the case studies. So I've open sourced all my methods up there. It's really my life's work for $10. The money's not the point. It's just to gate it, to get people that are, obsessive about B2B sales. And it's their lifeblood. Like they're on there solving a problem. These are people that have to crack a funnel. And you'd think, well, aren't you too busy doing SDR work for the group? Well, they're in there and saying, hey, here's my sequence. It's not getting responses. Can you help me fix it? And then, here's a Venn diagram. What should I do? Or, I'm blank on this, rewrite it. I've even gone in there with stuff that I'm doing for clients and had it just getting new ideas, try to set meetings. So thanks for your support, for sure.
Yeah, no, speaking of Venn diagrams, I sent a few out there, and I'm sure we'll kind of cover that a little bit later. But I think a couple things that really describe you to me, JM, is you like to think out of the box and just take a different approach. For example, if anyone goes to your LinkedIn profile as we speak or as this is playing, they'll notice that, like, again, you have a cyborg as your profile picture. You posted a video with Carol Baskin talking about, like, it seems like you like to do things differently. Like, how does that like define who you are and like your approach to sales? Because I feel like it kind of goes hand in hand.
Yeah, I remember when I first got started in marketing, I was working for startups. I was about 25, 26 years old, 15 years ago. And I've been in sales since I was 21. I read this book by Seth Godin, The Purple Cow. And it's such like a simple concept because I used to drive along in wine country and there's cows and farms. Even in California, you got the farmland around. You think about the cow as a bright purple cow. How weird that would be if it had a birthmark. It probably could happen in nature, have a strange mark on it. So I really started to look at all the systems. I don't know if this is subconsciously, but I noticed that it was a lot of big templates and marketing emails. And the emails look like things that get sent inside a corporation when one person has to send a letter to a lot of people, like welcoming a person to the staff or putting out a product update. And I thought, like, who writes like that? Like journalists, accountants, attorneys, government officials. And I was like, but how do people actually talk? And when I communicate, everything is like not a full sentence, broken sentences. And I think about all the people I actually communicate, like you, will just, hey, what's up? How's your day? So it seemed like there's a problem in the basic communication. We're communicating to prospects in a way that's divergent from the people they trust the most, which is their tribe, their friends, the B2C patterns. So whether you're in Facebook Messenger, Slack, Skype, WhatsApp, TikTok, Snap, it's the short form. So what I've came up with is, let's make emails hyper short. Let's see how short we can go. Let's send stuff out of sales engagement platforms and sequencers that is so human looking, you're not really sure if it was pre-programmed. And so I basically just broke everything down. I was like, okay, what is a sequence? It's 3 paragraphs. We're going to make it 3 sentences. What is an email? It's sentences. We're going to make it visual. We're going to put a picture in the email. And I've taken this across every single thing that a seller traditionally does. And what it does is it creates a pattern interrupt. And why that is important is not because the prospect goes, oh, you're pattern interrupting me. No, they, on a subconscious level, it just feels and looks so different than the last 999 people that you react to it and you respond. Um, so I have this book coming out called Tech Powered Sales, where I really researched hundreds of tech stack players and wrote all these use cases and ideas down and interviewed them all. But along the way, I realized people need methods now to set more meetings using email. They need methods on the phone to leave the best voicemail, or if they catch someone live, what do they do? And so I just created the Justin Michael method. I launched a WhatsApp group. It went nuts. I couldn't control it anymore. I put in the Discord server. I have these different channels. It's like a big video game. Every day, like after this call, I'll go into a power dialer like Orem or Connect and Sell. I'll plug in and I'll just make calls. And 15 or 20 people will come in and watch me get rejected and see how I work my framework, which is a route, ruin, multiply framework. At this point, I've just had miraculous things happen. Like someone comes in, they download my PDF, they read it. It takes them, I don't know, 7 minutes, 15 minutes to read it. They try one thing in it, and within like a few days, boom, they got a meeting. Or a top rep, a top SDR from Glassdoor goes in, reads the method, tries one mechanic in the method in the first week. They get 2 Fortune 500 meetings worth $2 million. So it goes on and on. But I think when you're in a world of these long prospecting emails and you fire off that spear, that tiny message that looks like a text, people respond. And in a world where they're tuning everything out, they're finally responding to something. It's also like when you put a lot of energy into writing a giant email and making it perfect, the recipient's like, what's the catch? You just put so much time into that. Like, are you going to sell me? Is that a lot of money? Versus if you just send someone like, hey, you're around on Thursday. Nope. Or sure. Or go talk to Bill, right? So the theories as to why it was all created is very much that I'm watching what everyone is doing in these mediums and I'm doing something else. And it'll still work because even if people copy me perfectly, I'll just be another place, right? Like, well, I'll be sending pictures, but I'll be sending a video, or I'll do a voice drop, or there'll be some way, some combination of channels that's different enough to then pattern interrupt the other ones. The great irony I thought of is 2 years from now, 5 years from now, when these methods are like viral everywhere, I might go take a template, a 3-paragraph template. I'm like, now that's working, because they haven't even seen one of those, because my methods are so viral. And it's even starting, people are coming in, they're getting emails, and it's my stuff, because we got the guides up on Reddit, and we got the Reddit channel of Sales Borg. We wanted to call the group Avengers, but that's a great way to have Disney like slap your wrist. So we renamed it like Sales and Cyborg is a Sales Borg. But luckily the Borg was this really creepy entity in Star Trek that takes over everything and assimilates. So in a fun way, we're virally growing. Our Patreon went from like 20 to 200 in like 60 days. This is a paid group. It's gonna go crazy. It's gonna be the biggest one ever in B2B. And we're kind of the Borg, the Sales Borg. It's a weird word. We do live email teardowns in there, live cold calls, and a lot of people are just finding business in there, coaching each other. It's kind of like a real club for bettering yourself if you're in B2B sales. What other questions do you have?
Yeah, no, I mean, I can definitely attest to all of that. I saw you do like one of your first live cold calls, and I think the next day I was able to book 2 meetings. It's absolutely insane how you're really just inspiring people to take on those challenges, take a different approach, and I really respect what you're doing. I guess, like, how have you been able to keep your ear to the ground and stay ahead, or at least see what most people are doing, so you can take a different approach?
Yeah, that's a really great question. I mean, of course, I follow like Josh Braun, and he puts a lot of his guides into his feed. I follow Jeremy Donovan to get a lot of statistics. I watch people like Dale Dupree, people like Ryan Reisert. I look at people's guides, their books, a ton of reading, a ton of ingesting. But then after all that stuff I read, there started to be some themes that kind of repeat. Like, okay, this person's really good at the cold call side. This person's like, Morgan Ingram's awesome at like social selling, video drops, frameworks for these novel prospecting methods, right? Jay Barrows is awesome at getting SDRs up to speed tactically. So everyone has their like own niche within. I was just seeking like, what's my own voice? What's going to be unique about what I do? And it was interesting because the publisher, one of the alternate names for the book was Sales Hack. I was like, there's this thing called Sales Hacker. You should know. So I read so much for so long as just a person setting the meetings that by the time I came out with my own stuff, I was part of comboprospecting.com. I was a case study there. I was part of a company called Outbound Works where I sent 1 million emails from sequencers. And then by meeting the group and having people interact with the way I naturally develop business, it started to just come to the fore, all the really unique and different things I did. And I started to describe them and turn them into a methodology. And Justin Michael Method, just, it sounds hilarious. The JM, like, what is this thing? Is it a cookbook? Are we, some kind of massage therapy or like Heimlich maneuver? If someone gets you could make up 100 hilarious things of what it is, and so I just released this thing as a super lightweight growth hack. My whole thing is I want people to get meetings easily and quickly. And I want them to get meetings even if they don't have a sales engagement platform. By all means, get it. If you can nail it manually with just like a phone and a Gmail and a LinkedIn, and you can set a meeting, and then you can figure that out. You can do a manual A/B test on some different subject lines and tactics. Then it's easy to take that into SalesLoft or Outreach or Xant or Guru and scale it up. Apollo, PersistIQ, Lemlist, I can go on and on. Mm-hmm. But Reddit was the huge surprise because we went up on Reddit, and you can't sell on Reddit. You can't link out on Reddit. Like, we just went up there and put the method on there. And people went in there like, this can't work. Let me try it. Boom, worked. And now they love it. It's upvoted 1,000 times. It got gilded. I don't even know what that means really, but I guess people came in to pin it to the channel.
Wow.
Yeah, it helped a lot of people.
That's incredible.
Yeah, it's fun. So now I'm just trying to take all the complicated elements of the methods and break them down into like, here's a 3-step call framework with like a puppy. It's like route, ruin, multiply. Here's what you say on the front of every call to transfer power. Here's how you sit tight and agree with them and get them to talk all about why they're right until they start dismantling themselves. And then how you go and you kind of sell a multiplication strategy. Keep it. It's all good. Multiply. That's a cool framework because back when I was 27, I used to sit on the phones and inside sales. I'd just go to work and I'd make 50 calls and I'd talk to like 47 people. It was nuts.
Are you serious?
Yeah. Every time I picked the phone, because I called executive directors and nonprofits. That's also probably a reason. And every single person I called had a fundraising software. So the problem was there was no one to sell to. I don't even remember how I came up with this idea, but I think it was literally watching the scene in Star Wars where he's like, these are not the droids you're looking for. It was literally the Jedi mind trick. I was like, what can I say from the front of a call? And I tried everything. I think I was reading Dale Carnegie, and it says like the most beautiful sound in the language is a person's name. So I was just kind of like, well, what's your name? You know my name. And it came up with this thing. It was sort of a Harry Potter thing where like kids want to have power. Like a person that controls a budget in a tech company, that's one of the only things in their life they can control. So if I ask them what they control, they're going to go in and take authority or ownership. There's like a power transfer. For anything else I say, the reason for my call, or let me tell you a story. Imagine this. They're fighting to get me off the phone. When I just ask them what they're in charge of, they're fighting to tell me what they're in charge of because they love the authority. And the second bit is no seller in the world will call you and you'd be like, oh, I already used your competitor. And you go, oh, they're great. Tell me more about it. No one would ever do that. That's kind of a Grant Cardone in a way, agreeing with prospects. That he's the only guy I've ever seen who said that. But so you kind of say, oh, that's cool. How's it going? And you agree with them. And then it's one of those, it's called a ruin question because if you ask someone, are you happy? Do you want to make more money? Do you want to be fitter? I mean, the fittest, richest, happiest person say yes. It's just the human nature, right? So you agree with them. Oh, that Acme is great. Yeah. How are you implementing that? How's it going? boom, boom, boom. Oh, well, the customer service is not good. We got legacy pricing, but the things never worked, right? And they, well, what do you do? And then if the polarity flips and they ask, and then instead of you going, great, we're going to fix it, you say, well, keep it and plug us in and test this out alongside, or let's make it even more efficient what you currently have. So I came up with this radical 3-touch framework. That's the whole thing. You're doing the opposite, like David Sandler. Everything the prospect's doing, you're doing the opposite of what they're expecting you to do as the seller, right? You bring up a problem, and instead of solving the problem, you you do something different, right? It's like spin selling,
like pattern breaks along the way. So
yeah, there's pattern breaks. And so I demonstrate this framework on the Patreon, on the Discord every day. And it's a lot like Aikido. It's like I'll get on a call and I'll call the wrong person. I'll ask them the routing question if they're in charge of the thing. Yes, I am. And I'll close a meeting on a wrong number. I've done this now twice because it works so well. We can talk a lot about email and what happens when you write short emails, but I mean, I could go on and on with this stuff. It's just like, what do you think the listeners are most interested in?
I mean, I want to pick your brain because I've said this to you before. One thing or a couple of things that I really love about your Patreon is those like emails that you send, because you have very great copywriting skills. And I know you and I both are really big movie and pop culture and media kind of fans. Like how were you able to develop such strong copywriting and storytelling skills? And how do you incorporate that with like your Patreon or like your like you like to keep it fun? How did you develop those copywriting and storytelling skills that allow you to relate to people on a whole new level?
Yeah, so I grew up in LA and Santa Barbara, and I read a lot of science fiction books, and I was super into all the movies in the movie industrial complex. So like Die Hard 2 would come out, and everybody in the world would see Die Hard 2, right? Or The Fifth Element, and we'd all go to the movie theater and all see it and all rave about it. Okay, 2 Bruce Willis movies, obviously. I've actually been to Bruce Willis's house in Malibu, which is funny because you grow up in LA. You grow up inside the movies. You meet all the actors and the celebrities, and Hollywood's part of your life. So for me, I needed a mashup. I needed a way to dominate social media. So I thought, well, what are things I'm really into that will express my personality in my brand? And I don't know if other people think of this. Like Christina Finseth in our group has avocados in her background. And it's great. She's like avocado and the fire. So for me, I thought I love the 80s. I love 80s science fiction movies. I love B2B sales. And so I photoshopped a robot, got Fiverr to put a robot. So you can't tell. It's like, am I becoming an AI, or am I a robot that's becoming human? And I have like a nebula photo from the Hubble, this crazy finger nebula. It's like you're entering this weird parallel dimension of B2B. It has a whole quantum leap vibe to it, which is one of my podcasts for Vendor Neutral. And I just thought, you know what, I'm going to do the mullet, like business on the front, party in the back. Like I am going to be the wildest, most radical person ever in B2B and have fun with it. There's been 6,000 people in it. And people in the content get fun with it, but pretty much everybody's been buttoned down like a Men's Warehouse ad, sort of. And I'm really out there. Like when I first put the robot on my face, someone wrote in there like, that's going to limit your job prospects. But now that I'm a independent consultant and I'm impacting so many different lives, someone on the team starts to set twice the meetings as they were after reading one PDF. They want to bring me in to train the team. So everything I'm doing, I'm thinking of the 80s. I'm thinking of the funnest movies like Back to the Future. We connect on that one. Or yep. Tron, or, Flight of the Navigator. I'm thinking of being a kid and just being like, just blown away. I'm 40 years old. So before I was 10 years old and seeing my first movies, like I went to the movie theater to see Flight of the Navigator from Disney, where this kid gets a spaceship and flies it all over the planet. It's an amazing bullet-shaped thing. So it's a lot of fun. I just try to have a lot of fun with the content. And then because what we do in B2B is so rejection laden, people don't treat us very well, I try to really gamify and just show people how you can still have a nice day and get rejected 20 times. And you can still be a fun-loving person, have a good attitude and a good mindset. And it doesn't really matter, because even if you strike out a ton, if you could just get those couple meetings, you can make a really good living doing this. Because I came out of telemarketing. It was brutal. You go in there and like people's average tenure was 2 days. These college kids would get on the phone and they'd all quit. Like any normal human within 2 days after reading a 9-minute script 50 times, they're out. They're like, nope. So you just hire more and more. And I was there for 4 years off and on. I was in the music business. So it was just sort of like easy money on the side. I never took it seriously. So I never burned out.
Damn, how did you make it through? I feel like that was like mad boiler room sales, huh?
I ended up coming and going a ton. It was just the culture. It was sort of a part-time gig, and it was that way. Like the baller reps there would come in, work 2 days a week, and go to Vegas
Oh
because
my god,
you could make 10 grand
really?
in a week. You'd like go in at 3 in the morning, open the Eastern Seaboard, and you would sell to like 6 or 7 at night. And if you could sit there long enough, you could game it. You
So
could get enough credit cards. It was pure boiler room for sure.
how do you feel like your first experience in sales compares to what being an SDR is in 2020?
There are similarities because there's a repetition. I mean, you're told you're allowed to say this. Here's your battle cards. Here's your templates. Here's your sheet. Here's your Goji sequence. You're kind of given like some guardrails saying like this is kind of what we want you to do. Here are the messages to send. Like do a little bit of personalization on what you see, but it is a bit paint by number. So that's very similar to an inbound telemarketing rep when I was 21. Um, the SDR is probably going to stay with systems that exist. And once they get really good at opening meetings, they're going to want to get to where the money is. They're going to want to close deals too and be full cycle because it's just hard for an organization to pay the commission to the AE plus pay the SDR. There's just not enough money in the margin all the way across. So unfortunately, the SDR does not get paid as much in the model as the AE. So um,
So
the
true.
frustration of rejection is there, the repetition is there, the monotony, and just you're kind of going like, what is this game? Like I made 100 calls, talked to 5 people, got no meetings, and 4 were executive assistants. Like, why did I even come to work today for 8 hours? It's just daunting. It's just like, this is the most brutal job ever. Um, and then, the smart SDRs start to figure out hacks and techniques, and they get sequencers and ways to automate their emails and ways to do multiple dialers through dialers, and they find efficiencies and ways. But what I do on my things, I have a power dialer. I'm dialing 10 numbers at a time, and all my phone data is pre-verified. And still, I'm just hitting the wall. I'm talking to people all the time, but I'm getting hard rejected. And so I think that gives people hope that, like, it doesn't matter if you have 20 years or 20 hours on this job. It's brutal,
Yeah.
and you got to have the right mindset to weather it so
Hmm.
you can get to the field. I know people that have stayed in the SDR layer, and they're very happy with that. They're just naturals. But yeah, I went from inside sales to an account executive to a senior account executive, from there to a director of sales, and then VP and RVP, and then did a lot of consulting along the way in different capacities. And now it's pretty cool because I work for myself. I work harder than ever. It's not like it's easier to be an independent consultant.
Yeah.
A lot of demands.
I guess for any SDR out there who like really resonated with the fact that the SDR role is a absolute grind and they don't really get as much respect as they deserve, and some days you could like absolutely regret like being an SDR and joining just because you aren't closing that deal, you're not tied to revenue. But you've obviously had a really success, like sales has done a lot for you, and even though you have to start somewhere, right, it definitely led to something bigger. What advice do you have for just anyone listening that just feels like, it's they can't see the light at the end of the tunnel with the skills that they're building? Like what advice do you have being someone who's like been so top of funnel sales dev for 10 plus years?
Yeah. I never really burned out. I had moments where, I was definitely always a consultant because I worked for too many companies, I'll be honest, but I always was able to figure out a company in the first 90 days. Because what else was the point? I get there, ramp on the tech, get certified. I'm making calls. First week, I'm making calls, failing, wrong script, dialing in scripts. For me, what kept it interesting was curiosity into the prospects. So every time I bring up a prospect, I take a quick look at their LinkedIn profile. I imagine like what it's like to be that person, what they care about. It's almost like I used to collect baseball cards, and I would have every card in every deck. I'd have all Donruss and all Fleer, and I'd know every player and every stat. And then I would take them out and put them in plastic, and then I would have special ones, and I'd trade them. And I was just like, it's like that for me. It's just my mind looks at the world like collecting baseball cards, and I enjoy it. And then I just enjoy the thrill and the challenge of trying to crack it. It's like I'm sending this type of first message, it's not working. I tweak it. I send this. So there's an experimentation and scientists in me. And we talked about this before, but my grandfather was a nuclear physicist,
I love
particle
that.
accelerator in outside of Manhattan in Long Island, a place called Brookhaven, Bellport, Long Island. I don't know much about Long Island. I have lived in Manhattan, but there's a particle loop like CERN where they explode atoms and find isotopes and you know some of that stuff. So and pretty much everyone in my family is a scientist, actually. Um, my brother is a computer scientist at Google, and I didn't go that way. I kind of left school early and fell into sales through the arts and artist management and music business. So I just really take a scientific method approach. I love A/B testing. That's what John Barrow says. A/B test everything. It's like, oh, he says the short tempos are good. I say the long tempos. I say put it both into into SalesLoft and test them, and let the data speak. Right? You can test anything, but what you can't do is change everything all the time because there's no scientific control. So what's great about these platforms, you can go in, send the identical email, you know, split it, have 5 different subject lines that go to 50 people a piece. Then you could just see which subject line performed and then cut the other 4. Now we have the subject line. Now go to the first sentence, test that. Now we have the first sentence, test the CTA, right? Or fully pattern interrupt. No first sentence, no CTA. Like you can break a rule, and by breaking a maybe societal rule, it sticks out. The big one that's actually become popular, instead of saying hi, you say hey, and it's proven to be more higher converting because it looks like a real human.
It's friendlier.
People don't say hi. I mean, I kind of do, but most people say hey.
That's interesting. So
Yeah,
you're always experimenting, always just taking a scientific approach. I love that.
I try to. I try to have controls. I try to, move incrementally and tweak one thing at a time. Um, and sales is a science. It is possible to do enough testing on a message that you can crack it. And for example, I've been testing dozens and dozens and dozens of variations of messaging. And I was trying to ramp at a company, and I'd missed the sales kickoff. And so my manager sent me the deck from the chief revenue officer, top 20 Seattle startup. And this guy, his name is Ralph Hurd, he had a deck like 350 pages. It was amazing. And inside of it was a SWOT analysis of the competitive landscape. And he had the competitors in a Venn diagram, and he had Tune.com in the middle as the one consolidating all these families. And I looked at this picture, I was like, wow, it was a flux capacitor, literally right out of Back to the Future. It's like, that's it. Well, it's crazy because my buddy there, Bill Gerber, had been using these Venn diagrams back at Coremetrics and IBM, and he called it his flux capacitor. Basically, sending a diagram like that the brain can process images 60,000 times faster. So it's not necessarily 60,000 words. It's like, it's just
Your words in an image.
yeah, all 12 emails that you're going to send over 30 days contain and what happens to the brain when it looks at a compelling image. When went to Lucidchart, threw some logos on there, right? Or I actually took the exact one, started sending it. First person I sent it to was the chief digital officer of McDonald's. I was like, send out a Gmail. Boom, booked a meeting in 10 minutes. Then I sent it to the VP of mobile for Home Depot. He called my phone from my signature. I couldn't ever get anyone to call back ever, but this VP that's impossible called me and said, pitch me. So, wow, I have something here. So then I started realizing that sequencers, pretty much everything salespeople do is timid in a way. Like, okay, I'm going to send you a sequence of emails. Okay, what is not timid? I'm going to send you day 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. That would be pretty rude, and no one's going to do that. But I thought, what if I send you an email on the first day and remind you the second day and remind you the third day? Short email, what I call spear, and then bump day 2, bump day 3. So like I gave them these titles, which is like very tiny compacted message, dead to the point. But again, this comes from like kind of going to the movies in the 90s. I hit up a friend, hey, you available on Saturday? I got you a ticket to the movie or a sports game. They don't respond. Probably later that night, you're like, dude, I have a sport, and then the next day, where are you? Are you dead? Like it's another natural way of communicating. We don't actually communicate. Like I wouldn't say on Monday, hey, Mateo, do you want to go, see Gladiator? And then but I'll wait a couple days. Oh, it's Wednesday. I have this ticket for you. You want to see Gladiator? Like, no,
Yeah.
you have the ticket burning in your pocket, and you're going to give it to Mateo or another friend. You got to figure this out. Hey, man, are you around? Are you dead? Like, are you alive? Let's go. So What I found with the sequences though is it's all spaced out. It's like you send them a message on day one, and then you like give a call day two, and then day four you do a LinkedIn message. Like you're not even, they don't even see you. You gotta,
Yeah.
triple, like call, email the first day, hit up their Twitter, retweet something, like something on LinkedIn, connect in with them, like just swarm around them, like, hello, I'm here. And then the next 2 days, do something to remind them because you might jar them, you might get a referral. Um, the downside of my systems is, of course, you will burn out some prospects for sure. But I think of myself, if someone is hounding me who's a vendor, I'll just look at it and say, I'm not interested. It's fine. But like right now, the analogy I've been giving a lot is like if I could get 1 million views on LinkedIn, that would be really valuable for me. So if someone contacted me, interrupts me like at dinner, it's like, Justin, I can give you 1 million views on LinkedIn. I would take the call, and even if it was like $1,000, I'd probably be like, okay, I'll try it.
Hmm.
I'm trying to get reps to think this way. It's okay. It's healthy to interrupt if you can solve something that helps them. If you interrupt and waste their time, it's just a double whammy. So you have to believe in what you're selling. You have to know how it actually drives value, because then you're not pushing on a rope. Then you're calling them and be like, don't waste my time. You're like, I'm not. Check this out. This is going to help you. It helps other people. And you can kind of back up the interruption.
Yeah.
That's the key. That's why in my calls, I'm just like, I've hired Cloud Tasks, so when I'm selling, it's easy because I've been a client. It could have not worked. They could have gotten no meetings. Yeah.
This is awesome, Jay. I know like you pretty much cover this in even more detailed or details on your Patreon. I guess for anyone listening out there that wants to just pick your brain, join the Patreon, connect with you on LinkedIn, see your cyborg picture, where can they find you?
I would say just go to Justin Michael on LinkedIn. If you want my guide, I have this thing called Cheat Codes. It's the best entry point into this. People have just off the cheat codes gotten multiple, 6 and 7 figure deals off this thing. I'm very giving them all my stuff. It's all open source in a way. I may move my Patreon to essay based or email based. Like if you write me an email and convince me why you shouldn't pay the $10, like if you're broke and you can't do it, that's cool too. I just want people obsessed in this group and like shedding on like, what are the subject lines? What are the tech stacks? How should okay, I have this I have Chorus. How do I use it? I have Lemlist. What do I do with it? I do have Outreach, but I don't really know what to do with it. Like it's being programmed for me. I have these templates. Like I want people that are obsessed with cracking the outbound problem to all get in there and swarm and help each other. And if someone's weak or new or scared, like go lift them up and you give them a session, right? We have people in there like 1 month into SDRs have no idea what they're doing and they need help. And probably $10 is the max they want to spend. This is not some giant capitalistic thing for me. It's just a gate because I want serious people. So yeah, find me Justin Michael on Twitter or LinkedIn, even Facebook, and I have a Patreon group. If you just look at Justin Michael on Patreon, it's fun. Oh, and it's called Salesborgs, which if you can pronounce it, it's a funny. Just happened to get there. It's so weird. I love it. I'm just like the Borg. Simile.
Yeah, JM, thank you so much. And for anyone listening out there, check it out. I pay $10 a month. I get access to JM, all of his methods. I connect with some of the most interesting people. There's so much value. This is probably the best group that any SDR, any sales rep can join at this given moment. So, JM, I just want to say thanks for being you, man, and thanks for doing everything that you're doing for sales reps out there. And we really appreciate your time today.
Yeah, it's a real pleasure. I love what you're doing, Mateo. I support every generation. I think that sales development is a very noble profession. We will always need to do sales and interrupt people. It's an engine of the economy. We have to be able to exchange our goods and services. Just, have integrity, know your product, believe in it, and just sincerely have the intent to help that person. If you really care and have good intent, you really can't go wrong. I get hurricanes of rejection, and I just kind of laugh because I rep things that I like. Something like Scott Lee says, like, if you don't believe in your product, you're not there. Like sales is the transference of belief. It's like the word enthusiasm. The IASM is I am sold myself. And so that's the bulletproof thing. I can get so beat up on the call, but because I will convince you because I know it's in your interest. Like, just give me a shot. This stuff works. So don't lose heart and don't get burned out. And one of the strategies actually so you don't get burned out is do pixel trackers. Start tracking all your emails out of Yesware or Serious Insight or any of your sales engagement platforms, because then you can see people are opening them. People are looking at your email and they are listening to your voicemail. If you're working and there's a total vacuum and no one's responding, it's not because they don't like you or don't like the product. They're just crazy busy. They have 1,000 other emails in their box. So yeah, I'm here to celebrate all the listeners on this podcast. Don't be shy. Don't feel bad if you don't want to do the $10. You just want to write me an email why you should be in this group. Hit up Mateo. He can get you in. I'm here to support people from all backgrounds, and really I just want you to get results. That's how we're going to grow.
100%. Thank you so much, JM. Sales Dev Squad. Check him out at least. He's always posting great content on LinkedIn, and we will catch you guys on the next one.